I am wedged under a car, lying in a pool of my own blood that's flowing at an increasingly fast rate. The sound of gunfire, which seems to have bloomed on for an eternity, gets replaced by total silence. I cannot hear a thing, just the sound of my own breathing. All I see are the faces of my wife and son. The voice in my head screams, "You failed your family. You fucking failed." What's up, Sussex? I am here with the one and only TJ Webb. Before I get started, I just want to say it's an honor and a privilege to have you here today. Thank you for your service.
My pleasure.
Man, I mean, thank you for your service, your sacrifice, and what you represent to myself, those around me, and to our community in general, brother. Once again, thank you for your service.
Oh, thank you, man. It's my pleasure. And I'm ecstatic to be here, man. I'm so glad we got together and got something going here because this is awesome. You got a great setup here. This is great.
Appreciate you, man. Who are you?
First and foremost, I'm a father and I'm a husband. Aside from that, professionally, I'm a speaker. I'm an author. I'm a nutrition coach. A gamut of things you could say nowadays. But from the beginning, I was born and raised in Milford in Sussex County. Went to high school in Milford, spent my summers working down here at the beach, and started my law enforcement career actually in Dewey Beach. And then the goal was to get back to Milford, my hometown, where I could protect and serve my community that raised me. And I did that. And I worked there I was in the city of Milford for about 17 years until I retired and remained down here at the beach with my family. And that's me in a nutshell.
That's what's up. Yeah. So I want to start our conversation by reading an excerpt from your book.
Sure.
Right? I am wedged under a car, lying in a pool of my own blood that's flowing at an increasingly fast rate. The sound of gunfire, which seems to have bloomed on for an eternity, gets replaced by total silence. I cannot hear a thing, just the sound of my own breathing. All I see are the faces of my wife and son. The voice in my head screams, "You failed your family. You fucking failed. Their lives are about to be ruined. You did this to them." As I read that, I just that really
It's tough.
Spoke to me, brother.
Yeah.
Once again, man, I am honored to have you here. I've had so many conversations about how that excerpt really woke something in us, man.
Yeah.
Talk to us about that.
It's I talk about, I call it the voice. Some people call it your inner critic. People have a number of names for it, but it's that little voice in the back of our heads that we all have, and I've always had it, that voice of negativity. But that night, it was, the voice changed into something else. It wasn't just a voice of negativity. It was a voice that wanted to destroy me. It wanted me to die. It wanted me to give up and die in that parking lot. And it felt so real, the screaming of that voice. It was as if there was someone standing next to me screaming in my ear. That's all I could hear. Nothing else. I couldn't hear anything else. And as much as it got to me in that moment, trying to hurt me, it was that voice that really played a big part in saving my life, because it was that voice and the words from that voice that got my ass moving to protect myself from any further gunfire. When I saw the faces of my wife and my son, it was where I was looking, which was underneath of a car, and all I could do was crawl. So I crawled to them, because the thought of them losing me in their lives that was a hard pill to swallow, you know. And it wasn't one that I was just going to sit back and give up on. I had to do everything I can to survive that moment. And I always tell everybody, you always got to look for work. There's always work to be done. You can't just lie there. And that played a role in that moment. I couldn't just lie there. I had to look for work. Even though, you know, one leg was shattered, I couldn't move it. My hands were both broken. I couldn't move a finger. So I just used my elbows and my good leg and just tried to crawl as far as I could and shove myself underneath the vehicle as far as I could to protect as many vitals that I could in case the suspect did come back and try to finish me off. But that was a tough moment. That was the voice is something I carry around. That's something that it's always there. It doesn't go away. It's just something that you learn to deal with it. You learn how to fend it off. And it's just part of my daily life, you know. You just gotta learn not to let it get the best of you. But yeah.
Oh, always look for work. Where did that come from? Because I know that's something that's innate. That's been with you a long time.
Yeah, that's something I learned very early in my career. I was on SWAT for about 13 years, and that was something I picked up in training early in my SWAT career. Was always look for work. Like if you're in an operation, a mission, and you're just standing there because you can't find something to do, find something to do. You got to look for work. There's always something to be done. There's always a corner to be covered, a room to be cleared. Someone needs your help over here. There's always work to be done. That's something I always carry through, and that's something that I've always used in every aspect of my life. And then, again, that was something that played a role in saving me that night. Something that I learned probably, 15 years earlier, But yeah, it's a saying I always liked, and I stuck with it, and I use it now more than ever. So, yeah.
TJ, so if you can tell us, I know we'll get into the book, but what happened?
Yeah, so December 10th, 2020, I was assigned to a violent fugitive task force with the U.S. Marshals Service, and we had located a suspect wanted for attempted homicide in Rehoboth, at a hotel in Rehoboth. So during that operation, we exchanged gunfire with the suspect at his vehicle. I was struck 6 times. Dropped me in the parking lot with a number of injuries that I had, and ultimately I thankfully made it out of there alive and went through a number of 2 years of recovery after that from that incident. But a number of injuries, shattered femur, broken hands, 6 gunshot wounds. I had to learn how to walk again, had to learn how to use my hands again. So a number of things. It was quite the process, but yeah.
You were told that it will be 12 to 18 months of recovery.
Yeah.
Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so I was a week in the ICU, and the first couple of days, I was out for the first couple of days, but when I was finally up, one of my questions was I didn't really know what was going on, how bad things were, and I was told that the recovery time is probably going to be, upwards of 18 months or 2 years. And that just was soul crushing for me because I've been an athlete, I've marathons, Ironmans, triathlons, CrossFit, a number of things, And so to be told you're going to go nearly 2 years before you can try to run again was a tough pill to swallow. And I've never been one to like being told no. So that definitely played a part in that moment. So that first couple of days, I had already made the decision, that's not going to be me. It's not going to take me that long to get better. I not just because I want to get to doing those things that I love again, but I want to get back to my family and be the dad and the husband I always was. I wanted to play ball in the backyard with my son. I wanted to go on those long Sunday morning runs at Cape Park with my wife that we enjoyed so much. I didn't want to surrender that. So I said in the hospital then and there that I'm going to run a half marathon in under 12 months. It's going to happen. And I don't think anybody really believed me. I mean, I was on a lot of drugs then in the hospital, you know. So, you know, people didn't really believe everything that came out of your mouth, but I meant it. And my wife knew I meant it. And those that were close enough to me knew I meant it. And I stuck to that.
So I know that there was a part in your book that you talked, because you went into detail about the recovery period at the rehab. There was a night that I think it was Christmas Eve. You just came back from seeing the doc, and he gave you some news that you didn't want to hear.
Yeah.
What happened?
So it was mostly bad news with my hands. Both my hands, my left hand had a bullet through it, so it was completely shattered from that, and then my right hand was completely shattered because when I fell on top of my hands with all of my gear on, which is 25 plus pounds. So I crushed my right hand as well. So they were so severely broken. I had rods and pins put in, but they didn't know what the recovery was going to be like at all for my hands. They didn't know if I'd ever be able to use my thumbs again, how much my index fingers would recover to be able to just use them for daily purposes, And it was soul crushing because at that point I was doing really good in rehab, especially with my leg, which was my main concern at the moment, was getting my leg going. So to have that news come in on Christmas Eve, it was tough, especially since I was already dealing with the fact that it's Christmas Eve and I'm not at home. And I saw my wife that day on Christmas Eve. She was allowed to come up and see me. I wasn't allowed to have visitors, but I was allowed to have my wife come up. Fortunately, they were really, really nice about that at the hospital because this was COVID. And I remember my wife being there, and I was just I was defeated, And I remember just telling my wife to leave. Just go home, go home to our son. And I remember her leaving, and it felt like we had been in like a big fight. Well, we hadn't argued or fought or anything. It was just the mood, And then she left, crying, and I stayed there crying, and I was just defeated. I just felt like I was on a good pace, and then it was just, that's it, You're not gonna be able to do the things you wanted to do. And it really spun me into a deep hole quick, that night. And I needed something to get me going. So, like everybody, I look for motivation in things, in people. And one of those people that I always look to for motivation, was David Goggins, So I thought, what the hell? I got my phone, I'm gonna send Goggins an email, So I went online with my one finger I could tap with on my phone, and sent him an email, and I thought, well, I'll never hear anything back from this. And I was just saying, like, hey, this is who I am. This is that just happened to me, and I just know I'm just, using you for inspiration as best I can, blah, 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 blah. And I put my phone number in there. I don't know why, because I wasn't expecting the dude to call me or anything, you know what I mean? But sure enough, I woke up the next morning and had a voicemail. Well, I had an email. And I checked my email, and it was an email reply from David Goggins. And it said, I opened it up, and it said, check your voicemail, motherfucker. And if you know David Goggins, that's David Goggins, right? So I was like, what the hell? So I go to my phone, or I get my phone and go to my voicemails. I got a voicemail from David Goggins, and he's on there 10 o'clock at night on Christmas Eve leaving me a voicemail. And it was like music to my ears, man. It was like flip of a switch, boom. I was just instantly back on track. And this was probably like 5 or 6 in the morning, Christmas morning. And I waited a little bit, and then I FaceTimed my wife, and I was happy, and I watched my son open up Christmas presents on FaceTime, and that was it. I was just back on track again. That's all it took. I just needed to hear something from someone in that sort of position, just to remind me, like, bro, it ain't that bad. Get back on it.
You know what's so crazy? I just want to hear from you. What was it about David Goggins? What was it about what he said? What was the message that he said for your life to be within seconds turn around?
If you get the book, you can see it in the book. But I remember him just saying, sometimes we get tested. You know, sometimes we all get tested, and it's what you do in those moments that really matter. You know, and he was right. This was a test. You know, my life wasn't over. I still had it, and I was thankful to have it. There was nothing for me to be sad about or bitch about, because I was still here. And this was just a test. And if you know me, I don't like to lose much, and that's the way I looked at it. This was a win or lose, and I was in it to win it. And it was his message that really reminded me. And the fact that he took time on Christmas Eve with his family to do that for me, someone he doesn't know anything about me, he's never met me or anything, just showed me that he cared. And it reminded me that people do care, you know? And that's all it was. It was just that simple.
And you and I haven't talked about this. This is the first time we're talking about it. The reason that I'm asking you to say that is because I'm going to tell you this. If you remember, I called you probably about a week ago when you dropped off the book. My son and I have a son named Brandon, so I'm going to put him on the spot. When we read the book, well, I read the book. He came in and was skimming through it. He went straight. For some reason, he landed at that page. Yeah. At that moment, there was a situation that was happening that he was completely defeated, and you were his David Goggins.
That's awesome, man.
Brother.
That's awesome.
Real talk.
Right?
Yeah. You know, I'm going to try to hold it together, brother. Like, this is my son, right? Yeah. He's coming to me, Dad, like, yo, can I run this by you? Yeah. Right? This is what's happening. Yeah. And for some reason, I had just came in, and Nelson said, yo, he stopped by and picked. So I took a breath, and I sat right there behind you, and I'm reading the book. Then he happened to stop in. I said, yo, this dude right here. Yeah. He opened the book, went straight there.
That's cool.
And you were his David Goggins. So when he left, I had to call you.
That was awesome, man.
And I'm going to tell you, I wish I could have recorded you because you were silent, and all you said to me was, thank you for calling me to tell me that.
Yeah, I was blown away. I mean, that's why I wrote the book, you know? So, like, when I do hear those kind of things, like, it hits me, you know? Because, you know, you write something like this, and I mean, there's a lot of personal information in that book. Right. You know what I mean? That's right. So you put it out there, you know, in the hopes that people are going to take something from it, you know, and you pour your heart and soul into it and your most intimate personal feelings, and you just hope somebody gets something from it. And when you do it and you put it out there to the world, you don't know. You know what I mean? You don't know unless somebody tells you, you know, so you're just kind of wondering, like, I wonder what people think about what the hell I wrote in this book, you know? So when I hear things like that, man, it warms my heart, you know, because that's why I wrote the book. You know, I wrote it to help people. That was my way of giving back, you know, to everybody, but especially like to hear that from you and your son means a lot to me because that's local, you know. And one thing I was really blown away by was the support that my family had from the community here. You know, that when that happened, that was a rough time for law enforcement with riots and, you know, all the other George Floyd stuff and all that kind of stuff. It was a really rough time for law enforcement. So when I went through that incident, we didn't know what the feedback was going to be just from that incident alone. But it was all love and support, man. And not just like people from the community, but businesses, you know, that reached out to help my family. It was just amazing, man. So to hear that from a local family, a local business, that means a lot to me. Yeah.
That's what's up. I just wanted to share that.
Yeah.
Risking your own life for the sake and safety of others. Mm-hmm. That's one of the things that I got, one of the many things that I got from the book. Talk to me about what does that mean?
To risk my life for others. Somebody's got to do it. You know, somebody's got to do it. And without having that, people that do that, I mean, what kind of world are we living in? you know, because the sad thing is, you know, there's bad people out there. I wish there wasn't, but there's bad people out there, and there has to be people that are willing to go out and risk their lives to save the good. You know, I don't just want to protect my family. I want to protect my community as much as I can, you know, because this is my family's community. That's it, man. I just enjoy protecting people. I always have. That's even as a kid, you know, it was something I always enjoyed, was helping. And that's kind of what drew me to law enforcement. Was I just want to help people and protect people. And I think a lot of people lose sight of that with law enforcement when they think of law enforcement. They just think it's, you know, some job somebody does because they have, you know, an ego problem or something. But the majority of people that are cops do it because they want to help people. They want to save people. And I worked with a lot of really amazing officers throughout my career, men and women, and I never met one that didn't feel that way. It's just an honor. It's an honor to go out and save people and risk your life doing it. I just feel blessed to be able to have been able to have that opportunity for the 19 years that I did it. And if I could go back and do it all again, I would do it all again, because everything I went through was worth it. The memories I look back on, the moments that I had, not just with officers but with the public, a lot of bad too, but a lot of good, you know. And that's what I try to remember the most. Is I try to remember the good moments from that career. But it was one that I'm very thankful that I had, and if I could go back and do it again, I 100% would.
Thank you. The invisible wounds that come with physical wounds are sometimes the most difficult to overcome.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that for me?
Yeah. You know, getting shot 6 times hurt, right? And the pain that came with that physically, not just in that moment, but in recovery, was, you know, undescribable. But even more so than that physical pain is, you know, the emotional pain. You know, the thoughts of like laying in that parking lot and losing my family. The thoughts of, you know, sometimes, you know, reliving that moment, you know, or reliving the thought of losing my family, which is really the thing that haunted me the most. I don't think a lot of people understand how bad mental fitness can get. Mental health, I refer to it as mental fitness. It's a serious thing. I think a lot of people don't understand it because a lot of people haven't faced true adversity in their lives. And I feel like it's a shame, because I feel like you really don't understand it until you've really had it, you know? And I always talk about adversity a lot because, again, doing hard things, you know, that's how we grow as people. That's how we build that tolerance for adversity, is putting ourselves through hard things. But the mental fitness pain is 100 times worse than any physical pain you could ever go through, man. That's a hard thing to shake, you know, like going back to the voice. That's just a hard thing to shake. And the thing about the mental pain and the voice is, especially the voice, I always fall back to that because that's my thing personally. It's all unique to us, right? It's all you know, to us as individuals. We all have our own thing. But the voice, you know, I don't let that affect me anymore, because I eventually figured out that voice haunted me because I allowed it to, because I fed it. Mm-hmm. You know, it feeds off negativity. It feeds off lack of confidence, self-awareness, discipline. And once I figured that out, I still had it, but I learned how to live with it and fight it off, you know. You just can't feed that. You can't feed that monster with those kind of things. That's why it's important for us to build that mental toughness with doing hard things. Yeah, that's it, man.
And the reason I'm asking that question, go back to my son in the conversations here over the past month, him and I, as he get ready to level up, we've been having discussions about mental health, right, and our mindset.
Yeah.
And especially when you've been conditioned for so long
Yeah.
to a way of life because you didn't have the confidence that you needed, even though you knew that you needed to be at a different level. You needed to do better for yourself. And now that you are making the strides to make that move, that's when that voice gets louder, right? With the stinky breath on you.
Exactly.
And you are faced looking at you in the mirror, challenging yourself, that inner David Goggins, right?
Yeah.
Like really challenging yourself to move past it. And for me, the biggest thing is, which now I'm just like you, I'm at a different place.
Yeah.
I can shut that thing down.
Yeah.
It still rears his ugly head from time to time.
Yeah, you just don't feel
But it all boils down to my conditioning.
Right.
Have you been sleeping? Have you been fueling yourself right?
Right.
Who's around you?
Right.
Who have you been talking to?
Right.
You know, because whenever you're not doing those things right, that's when that other, don't forget, he's always, right now, I got him locked up in the closet skinny.
Yeah.
He weighs about 5 pounds.
Yeah, he's still there.
But if I start lacking in one of those areas, he start gaining weight.
There you go.
He starts shaking
That's exactly
that cage like, yeah, buddy, you coming back home.
That's exactly
I'm coming for you.
Yeah.
So I relate. I hear that, right? Our experiences are completely different.
Yeah. It's all relative.
But that pain.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest. But what's so crazy about reading your book and your story is that it's obvious that you already possessed what you needed to get here from day one.
Yeah.
You have been conditioned, and and even your CrossFit training, you've been physically active, and that's one of the things that I'm learning in my later life, that the activity, it's moving your body, moving that action for you to be able to tackle those hardships.
I always trained, I was an athlete in high school, got out of high school, and I did a little bit here and there, and then as I got into my late 20s and I had my son, I started taking physical fitness a little more serious because I wanted to be around for the long haul, you know what I mean? And I also, I was getting into my late 20s, so I'm getting a little older, and I could feel that I wasn't in the shape I was once in, and I wanted to correct that for my profession because you never know what's going to happen. You got in law enforcement, you need to be in pretty good shape.
That's right.
So that's when I finally got into CrossFit, and it just changed me, man. And like we were talking about earlier, the confidence it gives you, that it builds that mental toughness, pushing your mind and body through those types of workouts. It builds a level of adversity in you, right? And the funny thing is, I say it's funny, when I was on the ground dealing with all this, this incident happened in seconds, but in those seconds, there's 100 million things going through your head. And I remember it crossing through my brain at one moment. It was like, dude, you've done CrossFit workouts harder than this. You'd be all right. You know what I mean? I was like, I could crawl there, man. I could crawl there. I've been doing, farmer's carries heavier than this, you know? So it's I think about that and laugh sometimes. But yeah, physical fitness is a big way to build not just, your strength in your body and physical health, but your mental health. That's my big thing. That's one of the reasons I love it. That's why I work out so much now, is because that's my escape. That's my number one thing. For me personally, we all have our own things that we like. For me, it's fitness, and that's why I work out 2 or 3 times a day sometimes, because that's my escape from everything. But yeah,
I've seen you on Instagram. You're like 30 days of Murph.
Yeah, today was day 20, so 20. So we got 9 more, I guess. Yeah.
For the people that don't know, explain to us Murph.
Yeah, so Murph it's a notorious workout. It's really, I think it was probably really made popular through CrossFit, but it's called the Murph, and it's named after Michael Murphy, who was a Navy SEAL. If you saw the movie Lone Survivor, he was portrayed in that. So he passed away in war. And the workout starts with a 1 mile run, 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 squats, and then it finishes with another 1 mile run. So it's a pretty grueling workout. And I enjoy the workout. because I enjoy doing hard things, and I'm always looking for something to do to test myself. So Memorial Day came, and we did the Murph, a few weeks back, and then that was on Monday. To Saturday, I was at home. I woke up early, and I was like, you know what? I did pretty good at Murph there. I think I'm gonna do Murph on today. So I did it Saturday, and Saturday with the workout, you wear a 20-pound vest typically. So I did it Saturday at home, and I didn't wear a vest. I just kind of took it easy, and I was like, you know what? I think I could do this for a little bit. So let's just make this a hard thing. Let's do 30 days of Murph. So Sunday, I started 30 days of Murph. I didn't count Saturday because I didn't wear the vest. So I started from Sunday as day 1, and I'm on day 20. Just finished this morning, day 20.
That's some B stuff, man.
It's fun.
When you talk, we were talking about earlier about the confidence. I just want to ask, as I hear you talk, there's a local coach. I was with him for a very long time. I want to give him a shout out, Coach Will Harris from Rehoboth Barbell Club. I remember probably about a year ago.
Yeah.
Him and I was sitting, and he said, Jose, I remember when you first started. You came in here with some baggy jogging pants.
Yeah.
You had some New Balances on, a baggy shirt. He said, and you don't know, we said we got to support this brother because all I was doing was trying to hide.
Yeah.
And now, fast forward, I'm in CrossFit and finding like all I'm doing right now, how can I get naked?
Yeah.
I want to be able to move.
Yeah.
I don't want to wear nothing,
It's hot in there.
But that speaks to the community. It speaks to what functional movement, when you focusing in on it, what it allows you to focus on.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Because before I was just focused on like, I don't want others. Like right now I'm focused on the movement. I want to be free. I want to be able, and what that has done to me is giving me more confidence to focus on the things that I need to better my strength.
Right.
And my agility and mobility, you know, so it's phenomenal, man.
It's great. It's a great community.
Yeah,
that's one of the things. That's one of the things I was upset about. I was like, when I was going through my recovery in the early stages, like on Christmas Eve, when I got that news, was, am I ever going to be able to do CrossFit again? Like that was my number one thing, and now my hands are so messed up. I don't know if I'll be able to pick up a bar again. And that was soul crushing. So. Because I love the community. I don't just love the workouts. I love the community there. It's a family. Shout out CrossFit Lewis.
That's right.
I love my community there, and I didn't want to lose that. I was like, man, I guess I have to go in there and row every day or something. I don't know. You know what I mean? I can't leave. I gotta stay there doing something.
I can't wait to get to where you're at. One of the things that I did when I joined the CrossFit in January was I said to myself, this time. Yeah. You just got to go in here and focus on Jose, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm a community guy, man. I love to talk. Yeah. Anybody that knows me, I love to talk. Yeah. And I know probably you ask people that say, man, this guy don't talk. Because I knew in the past, I've been trained, I've been coaching with someone for like 9 years.
Yeah.
And I did powerlifting, but really I wanted to continue to lose weight. But what I would find when things were getting harder, I would run my mouth.
Yeah.
And I would utilize that as a way to get away from coach putting pressure on me. So I'm like, you know what? You need to kill that.
Yeah.
You need to face it. So now when I do, I just go in, I'm solo.
Yeah.
I'm coming in. I said, before you form relationships, focus on your own relationship with your body, Jose.
Yep.
Go in there. Get comfortable with yourself because I can find myself back in that routine of not working hard and utilizing my mouth. And before you know, the whole hour has passed and all I've done is talk.
Yeah.
So I find myself, and now I see the progress.
Yeah. Well, you go in there, when you first go in there, even now, I've been CrossFit for 10 years or so. And even I go in there some days now and I'm like, this was humbling. It's just, it's a great experience, and there's always going to be, you're never going to get to the point where it's easy. That's the beautiful thing about CrossFit. There's always going to be something in there to push you, And again, the community is always there to help you. And it's like you said, you go in there and you get comfortable with yourself, And it's easy to do because no one else in there cares.
That's right.
They don't care. You
Yeah.
can take your shirt
I've
off or
noticed
whatever
that.
you want to
That's
do.
right.
They don't care.
No, I'm not there
They're not
yet.
there to
I'm
judge
not
you.
there. I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet.
No, you will.
I'm
gonna
not
get
there
you
yet.
there. We're gonna
But
get
I will. I'll go outside before I check there.
Oh,
yeah,
you're going to be in there.
That's what's up, brother.
it.
And I'm looking forward
Yeah.
to that, you know. And I'm seeing the changes. I'm seeing the excitement.
Yeah.
I'm seeing myself really not care
Yeah.
about what others say, right?
Yep.
Because I'm seeing improvement.
Yeah, exactly. You're working on you, you know?
Question for you. I wish Amanda was here, and I will have asked
Well,
her
we can bring her back again another time.
yeah, that's what I would love. Talk to me about the washer and dryer situation and how that symbolized your love.
Oh, when we moved in?
That's right. I read that part.
Yeah, so we started dating. Our first date was November of 18. It was actually the election night. It was when Obama got elected. That was our first date. It was a Tuesday night, and everyone's like, "You went out on your first date on a Tuesday?" I'm like, "Well, I worked shift work, so I had Tuesday off. We went out on Tuesday night, and then we hit it off pretty good, and I knew pretty early that she was the one for me. And then the following spring, it was May, I think. I asked her to move in with me, and she was like, "I can't move in with you." And I was like, "Well, why not?" She was like, "You don't have a washer and dryer." I had a brand new house, and I was, still a young cop. I wasn't making much money, and I lived a couple miles from my parents' house. And I was like, "I'm not spending money on a washer and dryer. I do laundry at my parents' house. I go to my mom's and do it. And she's like, "I'm not taking my laundry to your mom's house. So when you get a washer and dryer, I'll move in when you get a washer and dryer." So I got a washer and dryer that day. Went out and got a washer and dryer that day. Put it on a credit card. Boom. And sure enough, she moved right in. But yeah, it was funny.
And that also symbolized to me in the book. I felt she needs her own podcast, by the way, because of the support.
Yeah.
I think that it's not talked about enough.
Yeah.
The value and strength your significant other brings.
Yeah, for sure.
When you are in a situation like you were, right?
Yeah.
And now how others are reaching out to her, right?
Yeah.
Other law enforcement
Yeah.
families are reaching out to her to get advice on how to cope,
Right.
on how to best support their loved ones.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
Yeah, she's like me. She's had a unique experience. I meet a lot of people. They always want to, they read the book or they hear my story and they always want to tell me like how tough I am or whatever. And that's all great. But they haven't met my wife, dude. I went through a lot of stuff, but my wife went through all that with me, if not more.
That's right.
When I was in the hospital getting taken care of, she was at home with our son, dealing with everything you have to deal with at home: school, camps, homework, family functions, holidays. She was doing all that stuff, without me. Not to mention just the fact that she had to deal with our son at the time with what happened to me, So at the end of the day, like, she's really the true warrior in this story in my eyes, and I would not be where I am right now if it wasn't for her. Because it was, the thought of her and my son that got me moving out of that parking lot.
That's right.
And would I had survived, would I have done the same things? Maybe. We'll never know. I don't like to look back on it, but that's what saved me, and that's what pushed me through my recovery. I wanted to get back to them. That was my driving force. Everyone always asked me, what drove you? What forced you to do that with that mindset? Well, my wife and my son. That was it. They deserve to have every bit of me they can get, and I was going to make sure they got every bit of them that I could give to them.
That's right.
Yeah, but she's definitely a voice, man. Especially for like first responders, there's not a lot of first responders that actually talk about mental health or anything. And I don't know of really, I'm sure there are some, but I don't know of any spouses that get involved and talk about their story from those sort of things. And she's starting to a little bit. She's just she's getting more comfortable with it. It's tough, but she enjoys it, and I'm hoping that she really falls into it and does it a lot more, because she's a really good speaker.
Yeah.
She's a much better speaker than I am, for sure.
And the value that will come from it,
Yeah.
lives will be enhanced.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Talk to me about Hank, your four-legged partner,
Yeah.
while you were a canine officer.
Yeah. So I had Hank for about pushing 7 years. So I got him. I got assigned to the K9 unit. Got him. He was a German Shepherd. He was all black, had brown paws, and man, he was an asshole when I first got him. When I first got him, I hated him. He was just mean. He scared the shit out of me. So we went through 6 months of training together. So he was a patrol dog, so like apprehension and narcotics. Excuse me. And went through 6 months of training, and it was an intense training process for sure. I got bit a lot. I think he sent me to the hospital twice. We just didn't get along, but we made it work, right? And I didn't like him too much. And then we got out on the road, and we were working together after 6 months. And I had an incident one night where I stopped the guy who was, long story short, he was leaving a house he shouldn't have been at, drug house. And I stopped the guy, and the guy ended up swinging on me on the sidewalk. And when I stepped back, I tripped over the sidewalk, fell on my back, and the guy got on top of me, like UFC style. Uh-huh. And I had this little door popper on my belt to pop the door so Hank could come out and do what he needs to do. And I thought, well, we're going to try this out, you know. So I popped it, and the guy heard the door open up, and he looked and ran. And then Hank came around the car, like stopped and looked at me, like kind of like, you want me to go get this guy? And I'm like, yeah. So I give him the command to go get him, and he goes gets the guy, and we apprehend him. And he's got a bunch of drugs on him and stuff. But after that, I was like, that dog is my ride or die, man. Like, he is my boy. And after that, it was like, boom. We were best friends, man. I just fell in love with him from right there in that moment. He saved my life, you know? Or at least saved me from getting pretty hurt, you know? So we ended up having a great relationship for a number of years, and we had a lot of success together. And then July 4th, we were at work, and we were on day work, and he got really sick. As I was leaving work, he was in the back seat, like, was kind of throwing up a little bit, which wasn't uncommon. He always, like, hacking up, you know, dogs, they hack stuff up once in a while and stuff. So I was like, that's no big deal. And then I get home and open the door up for him to come out, and he didn't come out, which is rare, because usually he's like a rocket coming out of the back. He's like, oh, we're home, I'm ready to eat, get some water, you know. And he wouldn't get out, so I ended up helping him out of the car and getting him in his kennel, and he was just all lethargic and wouldn't eat or drink. So I took him I called the 24-hour emergency vet, took him in there, dropped him off, and that was about 9 o'clock at night. They kept him. They said he was probably just dehydrated. Then they called me about 2:30 in the morning and say, well, there's something else going on with him. We're not sure what it is, but we think there's something internally, so we're going to take him in surgery and open him up and see what's going on. I'm like, oh, okay, all right. And they called me back about 3:15 in the morning, about a half hour, 45 minutes later, and told me they opened him up, and he died on the table. He was ate up with a bunch of cancer that we never knew about. So, like, in a blink of an eye, I just lost my partner. I lost my best friend. I lost everything, man, because, I mean, that dog, my whole life revolved around the dog. He lived with me, you know. So it's like if I went on vacations, I had to make arrangements for him. You know, if I was out of town for too long, I had to make sure he was taken care of. If I was going out to dinner, I had to make sure he was taken care of. He was with me all day at work. He was with me all day at home. I was with him more than my family, especially back then, because I worked a lot. I worked a lot of hours when I was in K9. So I was with that dog more than anyone. And it just, in the blink of an eye overnight, in the middle of the night, just flipped my world upside down. And if you're a canine handler, you get it. It's just it was a tough pill to swallow for sure, because it just, like I said, it just changes your whole life, changes your, not just your life at home with your family and your dog, because your dog's gone, but it changes your work schedule, it changes your whole life, you know. And he's your best friend, you know. And he was just taken from me so early, you know. Like, I was planning on having him work for another number of years and then retire and be happy and playful and sleeping on the couch with me, you know. And I didn't get to have that, but that was a really tough time. That year itself 2017 was a really rough year for me professionally, and that was just like one of the toppers on it. Yeah.
During the 6 months of training with Hank, What are some of the lessons that you learned from that process?
Man, taking responsibility for your actions, not blaming things on others. I was blaming we were failing in training really early, and I was blaming it on him because I just didn't like him, you know. I'm like, he's a dumb dog. He doesn't know what he's doing. And we were at training one day early on, and things were not going right at all. And I remember the trainer was really tough dude, man. Like, he was no joke. Like, this is the way it's going to be. I don't want to hear anything else about it. He was in your face all the time. It was a rough canine school. And he finally had enough of me. He was like, "You're done. Get out of here. Take your dog. Go home. I don't want to see you back up here again. You're done." And I was like, "Well, I'm done? Like, this is like the second week. I have 6 months, man. You know what I mean?" And I remember I drove home, like, man, like, do I got to call my boss and tell him, like, I'm done? And I was like, nah, I can't do that. So I just kind of, like, I went home, and I had dinner, put him up, had dinner, and my wife was like, "What are you going to do?" I was like, "I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to go back up there tomorrow and see what happens. I'm not going to tell my bosses yet, you know?" So I rolled the dice and didn't tell any of my bosses, and I just got up in the morning because I had to leave early at like 4 o'clock in the morning. And I got up, loaded him up in the car, drove up there to training like nothing ever fucking happened, and rolled back into training, and things were good because I realized that night as I was thinking about things, like where did things go wrong, I finally figured it out as it dawned on me, like, the dog's not messed up. You're messed up. The dog's not doing what he's supposed to do because you're not training the dog what to do. It's a dog. You know, I was blaming everything that was going wrong on the dog. It wasn't the dog's fault. It was my fault. And I was putting the blame on the dog, or I was putting the blame on the trainer, or I was putting the blame somewhere else. It wasn't mine, you know? And once I figured that out, it got a lot better. It got a lot better real quick. I still didn't like him too much because he was an asshole. But like I said, once we got out of training and we had that incident, things were really good then. But we made it through training, and we got it together, and we worked well together. I feel like for a while we just didn't like each other too much. But that was one of the things, man, with canines. I really learned to take responsibility for myself instead of blaming it on other people, you know. That was one thing I got out of that. I didn't really realize that at the time, but looking back on it, that's what happened.
That's what's up, brother.
Yeah.
In life, we cannot always do what we want to do. But what we can do is look for work.
Yeah.
And you've talked about that a lot, right?
Right.
And then that leads me into, is he dead? Did I put a hole in him? Can I have some bourbon?
Yeah. Yeah.
Those were the
first things out of my mouth when I woke up in the hospital. Yeah. About 24 hours later, I guess. 24 hours later, yeah. Yeah, so I was awake the whole time during the incident. I was awake when I got shot. I was awake when I hit the ground in the parking lot, the drive to BB Hospital. I was awake the whole time until I got to BB, and then they put me out, thankfully. And then that was Thursday night. Next day, around 2 o'clock, we had surgery, and then that night they brought me out of surgery, and I was still loopy. I really wasn't awake too much until Saturday. But I remember Friday when I came out of surgery, I remember they were wheeling me out. I remember that. I was just kind of looking up, and there was someone standing here, and it was a guy that I worked with, and I remember asking those questions, and I'll tell you why. One was, you know, is he dead? Did I put holes in him, and can I have some bourbon? I had just been in a shooting. I wanted to know if the guy that I shot was dead, and I wanted to know if I played a part in shooting him. Some people might think that's weird. That's what I do for a living. Unfortunately, I had to use deadly force. Never wanted to do it. Hoped I never would have to do it, but I had to do it. But at the same time, it's not that I was glad he was dead, but coming from my profession and all the years of training that led to that moment, countless hours of training in that that time, 17 years. From that aspect of it, from that mindset, if I had not, this is going to sound terrible to some people, but it is what it is, right? Because you have to understand where I'm coming from. Again, I'm not glad the guy's deceased. If I didn't land shots on my target, that would have been a failure in my eyes, because I trained for that moment, you know? I trained to stop the threat. The threat was a man with a gun who was shooting at me, not to mention other innocent people in the parking lot at that time, right? And people that he had already tried to kill, which is why we were there. So if I had missed my mark and not landed a round on him, for me that was a failure in training. I failed. All these years of working in case this situation were to happen, I just failed. And that's why that's why I asked that question. It wasn't for like an ego thing. I wanted to know if my training played a part in saving my own life. And then the bourbon part was, I just love bourbon, man. And I wanted a glass of bourbon so bad, you know? But it came out, you know, for me, again, cops have weird sense of humor, so it was kind of funny for me, which is why I put it in there. But that's why those questions came up.
And one of the things that actually, I just want to give you something, because in the book you go into it, going back to the support of the community, right? You put your life at risk to protect us.
Right.
So I wanted to make sure, you can come on in. I wanted to make sure that I also played a part, just like just like many people did. I wanted to make sure that.
Oh, thanks, man. That's awesome.
I gave you a bottle myself.
That is awesome, man. Thank you so much.
Once again, thank you for your service, brother. But I just,
that's awesome.
When I read that, I understood.
Yeah.
What you were saying.
Yeah.
You know, and what you was asking, right? You want to make sure that you want to validate.
Yeah.
The years that you've sacrificed.
Yeah. I appreciate that.
The training. Your family.
Yeah.
Making sure that no one else, and I urge everybody to read this book so you can get the full picture of what was happening that day. You had to make some decisions.
Yeah. Tough decisions in the blink of an eye.
You know, and what touched me the most, without giving the complete book away, was you had to make some fast decisions.
Right.
And as I read, your decisions was really making sure, how can we minimize?
Right.
Because we got to go get them.
Yeah.
But how can we minimize others?
Right.
That could have been my family in the next room in that hotel.
Yeah. There's a lot of planning goes into these things. Like even in that one, you know, like there's up to literally the moment that it happens, a lot of planning goes up to that very moment. And it's fluid. You know, one little thing can change the whole plan, you know. But there was a lot of thought that went into that, and you can read it in the book. And it's in this is in the book too. But you know, his girlfriend was with him, and her 2 small children. Unfortunately, I mean, they were fine; they didn't get hurt, thankfully. But just to give you an idea, she actually reached out and thanked us, thanked me, but thanked us. For doing what we did, after she heard like why we did it the way we did it and where we did it. She understood that why we had to do it that way, and she thanked us for saving her and her children. So when you hear something like that, that really justifies it for you. You know, like, yeah, we did do the right thing. You know, but yeah, you can read about that in the book.
Just one more moment. Talk to us about, because that's the title of the book.
Just one more, yeah. So, yeah, just one more. There's a lot behind that one. The reason I chose just one more was that was my thought process in recovery. Everything they gave me to do in physical therapy, for me, wasn't good enough. They had a bar for me, but my bar was higher. And it was always going to be higher. You're never going to beat the bar that I set for myself. So everything I did was just one more. If it was one more repetition, one more round of something, eventually it was one more mile that I was running. But that's how I got better. And one more moment, man, I would love to go back and just be able to do one more operation, one more mission, one more call with my guys. You know, like that's what I miss. You know, I miss that world. I miss the tactics. I miss serving my community, and I miss the little things. You know, like the meeting up with the guys to plan an operation, to do surveillance, to do this, to do that. You know, like the little things like that is what I really miss. So if I could go back and just do just one more, like that'd be great. But I can't, and that's fine. You know, because everything comes to an end at some point, and it's not always going to be when you plan it, and it's not always going to be when you expect it, and I accept that. But that was a tough pill to swallow when I did retire, knowing that part of my life was over. But you know, I made a game plan and set eyes on the future and started working hard for that. You know, life's not over. You're just starting a different path. You know.
There you go.
So, but yeah, just one more.
And then that leads me to this. Continue showing the world what is possible.
Yeah.
Continue showing the world what is possible, right? That's the David Goggins quote that you quoted in your book. Yeah.
Yeah, he said that in the voicemail, yeah.
That's right. And that's what you're doing now.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. I'm trying, man. That's the one thing he said to me that I really took to heart. I'm glad you said that, actually. That was one thing he said that really resonated with me. It was like, yeah, he's right. You know, like I said I was going to do these certain things, and I need to stick to my game plan, trust the process, and I need to do it. And that was the moment that popped my head back in the right place on Christmas Eve. Something simple, man. It's just a little thing like that, you know. It's wild, but yeah.
And one of the things that my son and I were talking about was that your logo.
Yeah.
I am going to place, just like you did with the letter.
Yeah.
That you wrote and put outside your door.
Yeah.
You guys got to read his book so you can really just get the full picture and get inspired. But one of the things, just like you put that letter outside your door as you was recovering, your logo is going to go on this wall.
I appreciate that.
And why? Not your logo, because when people ask what's that, for me it's going to be a constant reminder to have to tell who you are and what you represent.
I appreciate that, man.
Right?
That means a lot.
That's what that logo represents.
Yeah. Thank you.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
it's a badge of honor.
Thank you.
You know, reminding us just every moment of what you represent, which it's like, wake up, get back on it.
Yeah.
Stop playing.
It's not over.
Stop crying.
Yeah, it's not
you
over.
know, stop freaking crying.
Look for work.
That's right.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So that's what that logo represents, brother.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man.
Real
really
talk,
man.
man.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Man, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me on, man. Thank you for having me on.
This is what's up, man.
Appreciate it.
So once again, where can people get your book? Where can people get your book?
So right now you can find it at thetjwebb.com. Or I'm sorry, you can find it social media at thetjwebb. You can find the book at thetjwebb.com.
So people can show up and support you. Another thing is that we're going to buy a bunch of your books.
I appreciate it.
I got a bunch of people that you're going to autograph them, and I would challenge everyone to do the same thing. Let's support TJ with purchasing his book. And you already said where they can find it. Yeah. You're going to be down at the bookstore in Bethany Beach.
Bethany Beach. Hopefully before the summer's out, we'll get the browse about. It's my goal because that'd be nice. It's
That's
local,
right.
really
That's
local.
Right.
So, yeah.
Once again, brother, thank you.
Appreciate you.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for your service. Thank
My
you
pleasure.
for your continued service,
Thank you.
motivating local community, motivating people like myself and others. Can't say it enough, brother. Gracias.
Appreciate you, man.
Thank you, brother. Love you, man. Peace until the next time. Thanks for watching Your Sweet Sussex. And for more episodes, go to IamSussex.com.